Hiya. Welcome to Coffee at the Crossroads. I'm Bill, and thanks for joining me. If you're new here, I want to say a big thank you. And if you're a returning viewer, of course, thank you so much for coming back, coming back for more punishment. Uh, no, today I wanted to talk to you about some of the things. As many of you know, I'm an expat Canadian living here in the UK. And today I wanted to talk about some of the things that are less than perfect here in the UK. If you've seen my other videos, several of them, I talk about why it's so fantastic here and why we love living here and all of the great things about the UK, the beautiful, beautiful scenery. And I live in Sussex, and we've got that fantastic Sussex sky and these great little towns, these charming places to visit and wonderful history and all this stuff. So many great reasons to live here. But it's not perfect, is it? And I've had lots of people comment and, go, oh, you should have been here this amount of time, or you should have been here, or you've never had this happen, or whatever. So, as we know, nowhere is perfect. But today I wanted to talk to you about the four things that I think could be better. And these are personal things. This is my personal experience. This is stuff that's actually happened to me, and just some observations I've made. But I don't want it to be a downer, right? Like I don't want this to be like oh, I don't like it here. I'm not saying I hate it here or I don't like it here. We love it here. It's fantastic here. But there are some things that could be better, right? So I'm calling this areas for room for improvement. You might have heard that euphemistic way of saying where it's less than perfect, or opportunities for growth. that's how I'm characterizing it. So yeah, so take it as you will. Some of these things maybe you can relate to. Some of them are going to be new to you. But yeah, before I jump in, I just want to say a big thank you again. Um, for joining me. So yeah, so let's do it without further ado. Let's do the four uh, areas where there's room for improvement here in the UK, living in the UK. The first thing is banking. Um, when we moved here, you wouldn't believe how difficult it was to set up a bank account. Um, that sounds odd, right? You're just going, oh, you go in and you give them your address and you whatever. Um, we had a situation where we had found a place that we wanted to rent, and the rental agency said, okay, well, you need a bank account. So I went into the bank and said, "Hey, look, we found this place to rent," and they said, "Well, we need proof that you're living somewhere." So I said, "Well, I'm going to have that proof when I can rent this place." And they were like, "Yeah, but we need something. We need a piece of documentation with your name and an address on it, something that's been mailed to you." And I said, "Well, of course I don't have that. I haven't had anything been mailed to me because I don't live there yet, and I can't live there until I get a bank account." So they were like, yeah, tough one. The one guy said, "Yeah, I see your problem." He couldn't do anything about it, or wouldn't do anything about it. He just kind of nodded sagely. Yeah, that's a tough one. Couldn't get a bank account without a place to live, and couldn't get a place to live without a bank account. So that's frustrating. Finally, I will say the bank that I'm currently with, the bank manager kind of was like, "Hey, I can help you straighten this out." And they were able to kind of circumvent some of the bank rules, I guess, to give us a bank account. So yeah, but we went to four banks, and it was only in the fourth bank that we finally were able to open a bank account. And I mean, I had money to deposit, and I had proof that I had a job and I was earning income and all this stuff. But I had obviously my Canadian driver's license and a passport and all manner of like personal identification, but that wasn't enough. So that's one area of improvement. I think that there's we've talked about British bureaucracy, UK bureaucracy, and though it can be amazing at times, that was one where it was like, okay, you've lost the plot here. If you can't kind of, if your rules have set up so that I can't get a place to live without a bank account, and I can't get a bank account without a place to live, then I'm caught in a catch-22, right? But anyway, we figured it out. So that's one thing where I think it could be improved. The second thing, and this is particular to, I think, North Americans, was getting a driver's license, or a driving license, as I believe you call it here. For the first year, I was able to drive on my Canadian license. No problems. I bought a little car, a little 5-speed, a manual transmission, or manual gearbox, as you call it here. And that was all good. And then my insurance came up and they said, you cannot insure this vehicle because you do not have a UK driver's license. So after a year, of course, I had to convert to a UK driver's license. It was then that I found out that I could not drive a manual gearbox vehicle because I needed written proof from when I had taken my driver's test, which was 40 years before that, that I needed written proof that that I had learned and taken the test on a manual gearbox vehicle. That written proof does not exist in Canada, because in Canada, when you get, certainly when I took my driving test, you could drive it on a standard gearbox, or you could drive it on an automatic gearbox. It didn't matter, and then you could drive either. I believe it's still the case. But anyway, I didn't have the written documentation, so they said you can't drive a manual gearbox vehicle here in the UK. Obviously, the ludicrous situation that I was in is I owned a manual gearbox vehicle and I had been driving it for a year, and yet the bureaucracy said that I wasn't allowed to do that anymore. So I had to sell said vehicle, buy an automatic transmission, automatic gearbox vehicle. And so I think that's ludicrous. Of course, I can take a road test and prove that I can drive a manual gearbox and all that stuff. But, with someone who had been driving for 40 years and had already proven that I could drive a manual gearbox vehicle, having done so for a year, it seemed idiotic, if I can say that I was not able to continue to do so. As someone pointed out when I brought that up in another video, or in another discussion, someone pointed out that anyone can land here, land here, come as a tourist and rent a manual gearbox vehicle for a week or 2 weeks or a month and drive it all over the country, but then someone living here isn't allowed to do that. So it does seem counterintuitive, doesn't it? So that is my second thing, is that the driving license system here is somewhat flawed, an area for improvement, shall we say. The third thing is purchasing real estate. Now I feel myself, very fortunate to be in a position to be able to buy a house here in the UK, and we have purchased a house here because we love it here. So it was the process that was foreign to me, and seemed bizarre. This idea that you can put an offer on a place, you find a house that you like, X number of pounds for this house, you say yes, I will pay X number of pounds for this house. The people say, perfect, great. You then go and spend money for an inspection to make sure that the property's in good nick. You hire a lawyer and you give them money, and in the meantime, the seller can decide to not sell you the house, or they can decide that they want to sell it for more money, or they can decide to sell it to their neighbor, or they can decide to sell it to someone who's come along and offered them more money. That is insanity in my world. And from what I understand, it's not that way in Scotland. I'm not sure about Wales or Northern Ireland, but certainly here in England, you can do that. You can just say, yeah, I have an agreement with this person, and yes, we have what is not a binding contract, but a verbal agreement saying, yes, you're asking X, I will pay you X. I can then outlay money for an inspection, and for I can give up my current place of residence. I can give up my rental or whatever it is, and then you can just change your mind. That's crazy to me. A contract, a verbal contract is a contract. And if there is offer, acceptance, and consideration, the three elements of a binding contract, you shouldn't be able to do that. So that's insane. I will say that didn't happen to me. We put in an offer. The offer was accepted. The estate agent took the place off the market, and we were good to go. It did take a long time. In Canada, it can wrap up in a matter of weeks. It took months here, even though we were all in agreement. It was, lawyers doing lawyery things. So that was a bit frustrating, but I understand that lawyers are lawyers around the world and they all look to squeeze every nickel out of every situation they can. That part was less of an issue. What was more of a nightmare for us was that at any moment, even though things had been accepted and we had given notice at our place and all of that stuff, even though all of that was in place and we had spent money on an inspection and we had hired a lawyer and all that stuff, that the seller could have at any moment gone up and gone, no, we've changed our mind, or no, someone has offered us more money. So that doesn't seem right to me. And in a country that is so steeped in rules and bureaucracy, that seems really weird. But anyway, again, that's an area for room for improvement. That, again, to me, the three conditions of a binding contract are offer, acceptance, and consideration. And consideration is, of course, money or services or whatever. And so that's kind of contract law 101. And so it was odd to me to hear that you could have offer, acceptance, and an agreed upon price. You could have, your consideration, and that the seller could get out of it. Now, to be fair, the buyer can get out of it. So I could go, hey, no, I've changed my mind. Yes, I've agreed to sell it, and yes, you've taken it off the market, or I've agreed to buy it, and yes, you've taken it off the market, but I'm not buying it anymore. That seems wrong to me as well. So on both sides of it, it feels flawed. Another area for improvement. So the fourth thing, and this is a smaller thing, it's a much more personal thing, and this is more of a thing coming from Canada that I find really odd, is recycling. It seems weird here. Now, I think the UK does a good job of recycling. You have to sort out your paper, and you've got to sort out you've got to sort out your recycling from your rubbish and from your grain and all that stuff. And that's good. That's fine. But we see a lot of stuff discarded on the roads, particularly beer cans and pop cans, soda cans and bottles and water bottles and all that stuff. And that happens much less frequently in Canada because there's a deposit for those things. So they're actually worth money. In some provinces, a beer can is worth 10 cents. 10 cents Canadian is whatever that is, 7p or whatever. But, even if a beer can was worth 5p, you'd have people who are homeless. That's what happens in Canada. If somebody discards it, then someone picks it up because it actually adds value. Now you pay for it on the front end when you buy a case of beer, or you buy a case of soda, or you buy a case of water or something. You're paying a deposit for those containers. So there is an incentive to bring them back. And it keeps them, it isn't about the financial aspect of it. That's not what I'm getting at. The point I'm making is that it keeps it off the streets. Not that I'm not saying that people don't, discard a soda can or whatever, but it's much more likely to be picked up and recycled because there's a financial incentive for it. And it feels like that's a system that could be done here. Obviously, there is collection of beer cans, pop cans, and soda cans, and all that stuff, and plastic. And those things have value in a secondary market. Certainly, aluminum is one of the things that's really recyclable. So aluminum and glass, for that matter. It feels like it's a system that could be adopted here, to keep some of the rubbish off the streets. that's another area of improvement, as I keep saying. Yeah, so those are my four things. Those, I mean, again, they might seem small and they're just little things, but they are things that kind of make me shake my head, going, for a country that really has its, poop together mostly. I mean, a lot of things are really make sense, and the bureaucracy works, and so much about living in the UK is fantastic. Those are things that I'm like, couldn't you learn something from other countries, because other countries do this differently, and they've found better ways around it. So so it feels like those are four areas where the UK could improve, and I'm sure that's not an exhaustive list, and I'm sure I'm going to get comments, people going, we could do this, and you didn't mention this, and you didn't mention the taxes, and you didn't mention something and the TV license fee and the council tax and the whatever and the whatever. Like there are other things. We can all complain about taxes. I mean, taxation typically is a frustration around every part of the world. So that's not one. I don't the way the tax system works here is it's arguable whether it's better or worse than other countries, but I wasn't surprised by the taxation system here. Whereas some of these things, I'm like, you know what, this is bureaucracy that doesn't make sense. Whether it's the driving license thing, or it's the banking thing, or the purchasing estate, like the estate business, real estate, and then the recycling thing. It's just weird, right? Like, man. Like, just if there's the secondary market for these things. So, provide a deposit, and people are you incentivize recycling it, right? So anyway, those are my things. That's my little rant, if you will. Let me know what you think. Let me know if I'm sure, like I said, I think that people will have other things that they think are need improvement here as well. But that's my list of four. That's really, I'm going to wrap it up there. There's my areas improvement for living in the UK. Obviously, they're pretty small, honestly. I had some bureaucracy issues and some of that stuff. This is still a fantastic place to live, so we still love it here. But these things are kind of head scratchers. If you got this far, as I always say, if you got this far and listened to me yammer on for this long, thank you so much. Please give me the thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, please. I'm trying to build an online community, and you subscribing would be very helpful. And tell your friends, watch more videos. Let me know what you think. Leave a comment, please. If you've got some other areas of improvement, there's there could be things that I'm missing there for sure. And maybe I'll do another one of these if I get enough comments kind of going, oh, what about this? And what about that? And what about this? I'd love to hear. But in the meantime, thanks again. I'm Bill. This is Coffee at the Crossroads, and cheers.